Let us pray. O God of unchangeable power and eternal light, look favorably on your whole church, that wonderful and sacred mystery, by the effectual working of your providence, carry out in tranquility the plan of salvation. Let the whole world see and know that things which were cast down are being raised up, and things which had grown old are being made new, and that all things are being brought to their perfection by him through whom all things were made, your Son, Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen. Just want to reintroduce you to the project resource team. Father Bob Fitzpatrick is our chair. He's not available this evening, but we have with us myself, Megan Thomas, retired priest, and Tina Aiken from St. David's Cranberry. Others who have been presenting with us include Christy McGuire and Father Bill Nadishabandi. And these are the folks who are trying to assist our congregations as they amp up their stewardship. Over the last 3 sessions, we covered annual campaigns, beginning with the gathering of your team and getting started. Last week, we talked about planning and execution, and we had a very detailed presentation from Christy McGuire at St. Francis Dunelm. I'm going to remind everybody to please mute yourself when you come in. So this evening, this is the basic outline of what we'll discuss: the importance of a spiritual foundation for asking people to make significant contributions to your congregations, setting goals and making your case, cultivating gifts, thanking donors, and reporting as well. We'll have a couple of case studies, and then we'll give ourselves some time for conversation, and we'll share ideas, share our concerns, and then we will pray ourselves out. Tina.
So tonight we're going to, as Mother Megan said, major gifts, but mini major gifts. Smaller projects, not the capital project that really is a couple years in the making and a couple years in completion, or at least can be, but more things of the scope of the kitchen needs replacing, the roof needs replacing, the Sunday school wing needs a lot of work. So campaign usually begins, I would say actually always begins, when leaders and members of the congregation desire to accomplish a purpose outside the operating budget. So as you can see, the things that I just described aren't something that you're budgeting for on an annual basis. Even when they're modest, what we define as modest, they can still feel quite challenging to do. And a campaign, even a modest campaign, is intense fundraising effort to raise a specific amount of money within a set period of time for a defined purpose. You're muted.
It's important, as I said, when you're asking people to make significant contributions to the congregation, that it not just be simply, oh, we need to fix the boiler, we need a new roof, we need choir robes. Of course, all those things are understood, but there is a spiritual foundation for our generosity. And this little passage is somewhat familiar to people from the line we often say at the offertory, all things come of thee, O Lord, and of thine own have we given thee. But the source of that is the story of King David building the temple in Jerusalem. The leaders of the families, the officers, excuse me, whoever is speaking, could they mute, please? Thank you. The leaders of the families, the officers of the tribes of Israel, the commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds, and the officials in charge of the king's work gave willingly. They gave toward the work on the temple of God. Then David praised the Lord in the presence of the assembly. But who am I, and who are my people, that we should be able to give as generously as this? Everything comes from you, and we have given you only what comes from your hand. To make a financial contribution to a congregation is in essence a spiritual decision. And when we want to approach people to ask them to be generous, we have to bear in mind that we're really going to focus on God's mission of reconciliation, the importance of relationships, and let the Holy Spirit guide the conversation, because each gift represents a spiritual decision. Truly, we believe that God is the God of all things, our work, our rest, our time, and our money and possessions. We keep the faith, we live in hope, we give thanks for all we have and all that we are able to give as well. Tina, this is you.
So why do people give? And this isn't, this really applies broadly. So it's, why are people giving in your congregation? Why are they giving to the Red Cross? Why are they giving to the local hospital? You know, it's just generally true that people give because they're asked, because they believe in the mission, because they trust, in this case, the church to use their gifts wisely, and because they believe their gifts will make a difference. So what's generally said about why people give is they give to change lives and they give to save lives. And again, that can be true in a variety of for a variety of organizations and areas, but it is certainly true for why they are giving to the church. So we're going to talk about goal setting, and we're going to continue to talk about that over the course of the evening. Setting SMART goals. I think we maybe mentioned SMART goals before. SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So again, how are these mini campaigns different from, say, the annual stewardship campaign? They are to achieve a particular outcome, whatever that is, repairing the roof. They are measurable. Who is giving? How much do you need? How long will it take? They're achievable. So, you know, you might think, well, if we only had $250,000, well, we could do, but few of us have that ability to raise that amount. So you want to set an achievable goal. On the other hand, you know, be guided by the Holy Spirit and think about what it will take to actually get the job done, and then look at whether you can, in fact, achieve that. So we'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. Relevant, how does it connect to the mission? Do you need the new kitchen? Because if you had it, you could serve weekly breakfasts. If you built that playground on the church property, would the children have a better place to play? So it's relevant to how you are serving God in your community and your congregation, and it's time bound. It's not something that kind of rolls on for several months. We want to achieve X, and we're going to say by what date we want to complete the campaign. Okay, next one. Strategic mistakes. No advanced research. You can't talk about your campaign if you don't know what your monetary goal is, what it costs. So you need to get cost estimates to do the project that you want to do. You need the bids, you may need design. Weak rationale, if you aren't able to state clearly and I would say persuasively to the congregation why this is necessary at this time. Again, not a generalized request. This is for something very specific. If you need to solicit the lead donors, that's critical. More about that in a minute. Random timing, that means gifts may trickle in and you may get a quarter of the way there and you may not get to your goal. So you say, you know, we want to complete this by Pentecost, or we want to complete this by the start of Advent. Point is, have a timeline. Poor communication. People won't give if they don't know why you're asking them to do it. And weak leadership or wrong solicitors. So is your vestry behind the project? Is your priest behind the project? You need all the leadership thoroughly engaged so that they can speak with others about it. Okay, next slide. Half a loaf. Well, we said these are mini campaigns. So you might think, well, we only have to raise 25, 30,000. Yeah, you know, we can do that. Yeah, let's just kind of get started, put the word out, ask a few people. A mini campaign really has to be planned in all the ways that were just mentioned. So half a loaf will not get you there. You need to put all the pieces in place. That's you, Mother Macon.
So critical to any campaign, and we say this is true also for the annual campaign. And if you were attending the first session from earlier in the month, you would have seen we focused a good deal on building your case for support. But this case for support is telling your story. And we can say that it begins with why. Why we need the gift, why your donor may want to give, because donors often have their own peculiar interests, their own particular concerns and motivations. Someone who was perhaps a Sunday school teacher has a real care about improving the facilities of the classroom wing, for example. It may be that someone who's been faithful as a property manager, has been a warden perhaps, has a real feel for the building and the needs of the building and the ways it could be improved. And so you would want to cultivate that particular donor's interest, concerns, motivations, their needs, and engage with them around that. And not just come at them and saying, well, we need to raise money for a roof, or we want to replace the choir's vestments. Not only does that why have to engage the donor, the why for the gift also has to be rooted in the mission and the ministry it serves. I think people get somewhat discouraged if they think they're just being asked to give money to keep the lights on and to pay the staff, which is very important, obviously, but it doesn't address the underlying mission and ministry of a congregation. So the why for the gift needs to have a story, the case for support that engages with donors and draws them into the mission and the ministry of the congregation. Every gift should be a way to strengthen relationships within the congregation and the congregation within its community. Tina's going to go into more detail into something that's called the donor pyramid. But generally speaking, when you're conducting a campaign, whether it's a major gifts campaign and you're trying to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars, or it's a mini campaign for a smaller purpose, a campaign should have a quiet phase before it has a public phase. In the quiet phase, those who have been tasked with being on this campaign committee will be speaking to the people they think have financial capacity to make a significant contribution towards the overall funding of the project. Solicitation in this phase of the campaign is really a one-on-one kind of conversation. And so it's important that the people who are going to be engaging in these conversations are not only know the details of the campaign and the purpose behind it, but they're also comfortable talking about money. Not everybody is comfortable talking about money. And it's certainly true that within certain faith traditions, we are perhaps overly reticent to talk about money. But it's important. As I said, it's a way to build relationships. And of course, and I used to say this all the time, leaders lead. That means the vestry and the key stakeholders and the leaders in the congregation should be asked to participate as they can and in this quiet phase, because this is when you begin the serious campaign to raise money. Then, when you've got the quiet phase under your belt, go public, have a kickoff event, have a special lunch after church, have a party, spread the message as widely as possible, put it out through social media, get it on your website, send the letter, send the emails, send the texts, include the former members of your congregation who have retired perhaps and moved away. If you can find them, locate the children of congregants who have passed away or moved away. See if they will recall their experiences with the congregation and become engaged. Certainly, you ought to be engaging with the members of your community who are actually using the church facility. Tina, this is you.
Yes, I'm a retired former fundraiser for a university, so I might be the only one who truly loves the pyramid, but I think it's a really useful planning tool. And so I thought I'd say a couple words about it. Mother Megan just mentioned the quiet phase. And if you look at the pyramid, you'll see, well, if you look first on the right, and you'll see that the goal for the campaign was 50,000. You'll have your own goal there. But in the quiet phase, you can see that 28,000 was raised. And it's really important that in the quiet phase, you raise half to 60% of your total goal. That's that generally results in success. And if you haven't done that, it can be quite challenging to get to your goal. So what does the pyramid show? It shows at the top, lead gifts, major gifts, middle gifts, regular gifts. What are lead gifts? It's that one or two gifts, the largest gifts that really anchor the campaign. So you have to ask yourself, well, who could do that? You know, many people wouldn't be able to do that, but there's probably going to be one or two, or maybe even a handful of people in the congregation that you can think, you know, I think they could do that. And then the second question is this something that they would care about? It may be you've got a handful of people who could make that gift, but two of them really care about this particular project. So those are going to be your best prospects. Those conversations, Mother Megan said, those conversations happen one-on-one. They happen very early. That's part of what you're saying to the donors, whether they're the lead donors, where you just have one or two, or the major donors, where you have 2, 3, 4, maybe at that level, where you're saying, I'm coming to you first, because I'd like to talk with you about this project. I'd like to hear from you about your thoughts on this project. And then I'd like to ask you whether you could make a lead gift to this project. Those, it sounds like those might be hard conversations to have, but this is not, there's no arm twisting here. That's not what this is. You're actually talking with people who want to help, who at heart understand how important this can be. But you'll identify in your planning stage, you'll identify, well, who am I going to have those conversations with? And then I'd go down a level to the major gifts and say, well, who's that handful of people I'm going to have those conversations with? And you may get turned down by one or a couple of those you are asking, and that's okay. Hopefully there'll be another, another one there, another person where you say, well, okay, I can go to this person instead. And sometimes people say no and change their minds. They maybe they don't quite believe you can get to the goal. They want to think about it a little. They want to say, well, who else is on board for this project? And so that's why, again, having the leadership, the vestry, the rector thoroughly behind it is important, because they'll want to know that if they make that kind of commitment, that it can happen, that it can succeed. In the public phase, then that's when you're with at least half, maybe a bit more in hand, you can go to the whole congregation and say, here, here's what is needed. The good news is we're partway there. Let us tell you more about this. Let us tell you why we think this would be important for our growth, why it would be important for our community, both our internal community and perhaps the community writ large, and spread that message. So if we can look at the upside down funnel next, Mother Megan. But fill in this pyramid, sorry, flip back once more. Fill in this pyramid, fill in actual names on the first, at least the first two, maybe even the kind of, yeah, probably the first three down on the pyramid. See who you're going to ask, see if the pyramid makes sense, see if you really think you can get to your goal. And but write in names, and then think, who's going to ask that person? Is it going to be the senior warden who asks? Is it going to be the finance chair? Is it going to be somebody else from the vestry? Do you need clergy to make that ask? Are they willing to do that? So just fill in your pyramid. Okay, now for the funnel. Okay, upside down pyramid. This is, I think, largely about then communicating. In a way, you're doing this in terms of awareness, engagement, donation, as part of your one-on-one conversations with the lead and major donors. But then, when you're going into the public phase, you're providing this kind of communication and information to the whole congregation, so that everybody becomes aware of it. They see that it's important. They see that it's special. they see what it will achieve. Then the donation is easy because, but the main thing is the relationship building and the conversations that you're having with people in the parking lot, coffee hour. Why do we need this? How can I help? And then when it comes to the donation, it's there because people are engaged with what you're doing. See, I guess, okay. Communicate the case. It's not just business as usual. This isn't the annual campaign. This is something special. It's not something we do every year. We may only do this kind of project once every 3-5 years, maybe even less frequently. It's just something that is very needed, and we want to get this done. Unique opportunity. Here's what's possible because of your gift. I would create some visuals. In some form. I think, Mother Megan, when you do the case, you'll have some visuals that you created for the kitchen campaign. Something that's fun, something that, as you know, one of the vestry members said to me, she said, I'm a visual person. We were just doing really a very, very mini campaign. And it was because of some needed landscaping. And she said, I need to see that. So we had green AstroTurf. As the campaign went along, we added more flowers to the AstroTurf and in the vestibule to show how we were doing. So something that if there are designs if it's a project that involves design, put up the design so people can see, so they can ask questions. Why are you doing this? What's that? And that this is going beyond, so inspire sacrificial giving. This is going beyond what what you're doing for your annual pledge. Okay, I think that's good on that one.
Okay. Sometimes it's easier for people to share the case for support if they conceive of it as a story. You know, almost all of Scripture is storytelling. And of course, Jesus was a master storyteller. Telling a story has a way of drawing people in. And not only that, it creates imagery in their minds. It's memorable. It's not just numbers. It's not just timing. It's not facts and figures, but it's a story. And if you can relate a story to someone and they grasp it, then they can share the story too and tell it again and again. And they can become part of that fundraising team simply by being enthusiastic and knowing the story behind your case. I'm sure you've heard of the elevator pitch. I've been told numerous times in organizations that I've been involved with that when there was a campaign of some sort, it would be good to have an elevator pitch. And we were asked to practice to write something that would be no more than 60 seconds, often half a minute, and just get the point across. Hey, did you hear what we're doing? I'm part of this. I think you should be too. And this is the end result. Make it intriguing. Ask the person that you're telling this story to find a time to come back and ask you questions and be welcoming of their questions. It truly is, what could you tell somebody as you're riding up and down the elevator and you've got only a matter of seconds? So this is actually a good exercise for your fundraising committee and for your vestry to practice writing and memorizing and sharing with each other the elevator pitch, the quick story to engage your congregation. So we talked about having the right person make the ask. having the right people be the ones to put the possibility of joining in this campaign before your donors, whether that's during the quiet phase or when you've gone public. But especially in the quiet phase where you're having one-on-one conversations with people, these are some of the approaches that you ought to take. Obviously, you should be friendly and you should be engaging. You should share your own personal experience, your own giving. At the same time, you have to be a good listener. That's so important. Let people ask questions, give them time, respect their hesitancy, respect even a negative answer. But, don't put people on the spot, of course, but stay in touch. A person who says, no, I don't think I can do that right now, might change their mind. And you could be able to say to that person, well, if you'd like to know more about this, I'm always available and you know how to reach me. I'm excited. I hope you'll come and talk to me again. So you can see you can have that kind of engaging, pleasant conversation. Tina, back to you.
Give thanks. Well, absolutely. We give thanks all the time, every day, for so much that we have been given. And as part of the campaign, certainly an important part, a critical part, maybe an obvious part, but really is to give thanks. Acknowledging the gift is that, you need you need to know for your taxes, perhaps. You have a record that, yep, the church has received the gift. But saying thank you is something else. So as you can see, acknowledge a gift once, say thank you 7 times. You just can't say thank you too much. And how can you say thank you? Well, you can handwrite a note. Handwritten notes are kind of a rare thing these days. So it's kind of special if you get a handwritten note. Make a personal video to thank. I think that's a fun idea. Take a photo of the project and send that. You can also turn this into a display. It's part of reporting the results. We'll talk about that next, but how's the project coming along? So you can send a photo of the project underway. You could make a certificate. There might be a very small gift. There are all kinds of ways to say thank you. They can come from different people. They might come from the priest. They might come from a vestry member. They might come from somebody else who's involved in the project who's not on the vestry. But again, you just can't say thank you too often. So what about the results? Because we've told people, we've said, your gift will make a difference. Well, how are things going? So reporting results doesn't just come at the end of the campaign. Reporting results comes throughout the campaign. How's it going? You can do that through an announcement, after the service. You can do that with a thermometer, like you see here. How's the campaign coming along? You can do it in some more creative way than that applies to your particular project. If it's a kitchen renovation, you could have a kitchen and you kind of put on the new stove, and you put on the new refrigerator, and you put on the elements that are going in the kitchen. There's all kinds of ways. You'll have great ideas, but people want to know, well, where are we? Okay, so we said we were going to wrap this campaign up in 2 months. We're halfway through. Where are we? How close are we? And actually showing how close you are or how far you have to go is it both keeps people informed, but it's also very motivating. Just a tiny story. We had again a mini campaign, and it was to wrap up by Pentecost. And I was thinking, and I was chairing it, and I was thinking that Pentecost was 1 week later than it actually was this year. I just had the wrong date in my head for it. And so there we are, we're a week away from Pentecost, and I'm thinking it's 2 weeks for us to make the goal, and it's not. And so in the announcement, I said, well, we've got a little ways to go, and it's coming a little sooner than I thought it was. So if you've been thinking about making a gift, this would be a great time, and we would appreciate it so much. The gifts came in, we exceeded the goal. So having the goal and letting people know how you're doing is very important. It's just by way of having that communication that's ongoing, so that people, so it's very transparent how things are going. And on the thank you, every gift is important. Every single gift, no matter the size, that's not, yes, you need the larger gifts to get to the goal, but engaging people and having them be part of it is really one of the most fulfilling aspects of it. I think spiritually fulfilling for everyone is to have everybody engaged in helping to accomplish this. You're muted.
There we go. It's been a long time since I had to run Zooms. We have a couple of case studies. One is from St. Luke's in Ewing, and the other from Grace St. Paul's in Mercerville. And I'm not sure that we have the representative from Grace St. Paul's here with us. It was to be the senior warden. So Jill, if you're there somewhere.
Yep, I'm here.
All right, excellent. That's great. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to pick up when I leave off with St. Luke's, but we'll start with St. Luke's and its kitchen. So I was priest in charge at St. Luke's for over 8 years. And one of the things that I certainly noticed, but that the congregation had been living with for a long time, was a very cramped, small 1950s kitchen with this massive gas stove range with 10 burners and 2 ovens and a pilot light that used to go out if you had people opening the door to the outside and the kitchen door at the same time. It needed maintenance. It was not accessible to the disabled, and we had wheelchair and walker users in the congregation. It wasn't meeting the needs of the congregation or the groups that were using the parish hall. And it had cupboards, which of course you think an old kitchen ought to have cupboards, but the cupboards were full of everything that people didn't want at home and thought they would bring to the church and donate to the church, what I sometimes call junk for Jesus. And so the kitchen had become a place of sort of a catch-all for stuff. And it wasn't serving the purpose of the congregation. Now, back in the 1980s, when I think these pictures were taken, they were still actually cooking meals in the kitchen. That's a lot of baked chicken there in the top picture. And in the bottom picture, these 4 ladies are sitting around a card table doing some kind of work there, but there's absolutely no elbow. It's a very cramped space. And so the goal was to create a kitchen that would meet the current needs of the congregation and other groups who tend not to cook in the kitchen and tend instead to bring food from home or have things catered, which perhaps was not so popular in the 50s and 60s, but seems to be the norm now, or at least it was the norm at St. Luke's. So we wanted to have up-to-date appliances. We wanted to have accessible fixtures, things people could reach, more elbow room, flexible space, better lighting, and ventilation. There is no ventilation over this range, which is amazing. It was not vented out of the building. So a kitchen committee was formed early in 2019. including members of vestry, people who were involved in hospitality, an architect who was a member of the congregation, and clergy. We figured out a timeline. We came up with a budget to do the work we thought would be required for demolition and renovation. And we initiated a quiet phase, going directly to those people we knew would be interested. And also, we knew that they had capacity and they were generous. And we raised more than half the money during the early part of 2019. In the meantime, as soon as there was enough cash available, we got to work with the demolition. That was quite a story in itself because of asbestos. And also there used to be a closet that had a dumbwaiter in it, which wasn't working. And so work began in earnest during the summer. The campaign went public in August, and letters were sent to everyone, frankly, that we had on a mailing list, including people who had moved away and where we could find them, the family members of people who had passed away or were no longer living in the area. And we even included some of our former clergy, and we did indeed get a gift from one of the former rectors and a lovely thank you note for including her, which was just lovely because she remembered that kitchen. We raised more than our goal, and the work was finished in February of 2020, just in time to celebrate a beloved parishioner's 100th birthday, March 1st, 2020. Well, you all remember what happened 2 weeks later, right? 2 weeks later in 2020, our churches were closed. But fortunately, the kitchen was done. It was essentially done. And we were able to put it to good use and have a wonderful celebration of someone who was very dear to us. As part of the kitchen campaign, when it went public, members of the Stewardship Commission wrote this absolutely lovely letter, which I'll read for you because the print is tiny. Dear friends, do you have memories of apple pies being baked in the church oven? How about soup on the stove or a group of men cooking Mother's Day breakfast after the 10:30 service? Perhaps you were a young child eating fresh baked cookies one cold December afternoon. Maybe you were a part of the committee that worked like a well-oiled machine to make sure we had a successful Seder. The church used to host a Seder. St. Luke's is a vibrant place, and the kitchen often serves as the centerpiece of fellowship. But have you seen our kitchen recently? And the letter goes on from there. And this is the case for support. This is the letter that is meant to stir memories, tug at your heartstrings, engage people, and make them want to be part of this endeavor. When the letter went out, it also went with this recipe card, which was printed on two sides of a piece of heavyweight cardstock. On one side, it says St. Luke's recipe for a new kitchen, and it lists all the things that they were going to need. A new electrical panel, new walls, ceiling and floor, improved lighting, range and vent hood, sink, dishwasher, refrigerator, microwave, stainless steel prep tables instead of those cupboards, flexible space with tables that have wheels, and a stainless steel storage shelves. And then on the other side of the card was a recipe for breakfast strata, which was a casserole dish that people used to make for the annual meeting. And it's a pretty good recipe, and you can look it up later and even try it. So you see, we have a recipe from one of the former rectors and a favorite of the congregation and a recipe for a new kitchen. And that's basically how we told the story, and we were successful. So that's one approach to a mini campaign. Now I want to introduce Jill Brzezinski, who is here. She's the senior warden at Grace St. Paul's, Mercerville. Take over, Jill. I see it says Megan on your, I think that's because I sent you my link.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's why I didn't know you were here.
All right. No problem. Hi, I'm Jill Brzezinski. I'm the senior warden at Grace St. Paul's in Mercerville. I've been a church member at Grace St. Paul since I was 3 years old. As you can tell, I'm not 3 years old anymore. And it's been a wonderful over 60 years of being a member at Grace St. Paul's. So what happened was we created the Nehemiah Fund, which, as you can read on the screen, because I'm really sorry, I'm on my phone. Nehemiah was someone who said, then they set their hands to do the good work. So we set up a Nehemiah Fund basically to help us with our building and grounds. Well, our building came to, we needed new roofs on 2 of the main buildings, not the church itself, because that's a slate roof. But in addition to that, our gutters were definitely in very, very disrepair. We had water everywhere, not inside too much, but every once in a while it would go downstairs into the Sunday school rooms. So we started a campaign, and it was, we were asking our parishioners, family, friends, anyone we could think of to help us. So we created, what we did in our church was we created special envelopes that said directly on it, Nehemiah Fund, roof and gutters. And the parishioner or a visitor could put money in there, and it would go directly to roof and gutters, not to the general building, which was also in Nehemiah, but just to roof and gutters. So over the years, our roof and gutter monies accumulated, and we were finally able to go out and get quotes for the roof and gutters, which, as you know, can be, oh my goodness. So we were almost reaching our goal. And as you can see from the pictures and everything, the way we did it was you get your normal quotes, you relate with the guys who are going to do it, and we started. So once we obtained the monies that we needed, the guys, we set up a date. Of course, the weather did not comply, so we had to wait for them. But along the way, communication was key. We did the thermometer that was in the past slide. We did a thermometer, and you could watch the money grow in that account. So it let our parishioners know what was going on. Communication through epistle, through that useful about it. You know, how's it going? You know, we're working on this. Have you seen how much money we've raised? And I think in our parish, the communication was the key to us obtaining our goal. For me, this was a personal goal that I was so happy to obtain, not only making the church that I love and have been raised in look so much better and so much healthier now with our gutters and our beautiful new roofs, but also our parishioners were so proud that they got to help do this. They helped us achieve our goal. And yes, they were thanked. We kept records of who gave what, and they got little thank you notes, and they got thank yous personally, you know, thank you very much, you know, every little bit counts. And we had a lot of parishioners who were very faithful with their donations over the years. Our next campaign is, we have a parishioner whose wife passed away, and he'd like the main church to be air conditioned. That was one thing his wife, Rita, really, really wanted. We didn't obtain that goal while she was still alive, but we will obtain it in the near future. So in our Nehemiah Fund, now we have new envelopes. They say Rita Wolverton Air Conditioning Fund. So our parishioners can give special donations just to that. But as with any church, we have a slate roof on our main church building. So we still have our roof fund out there because we do have to have some slate work done. So I hope I've encouraged you. It's the key to this whole thing, and as everyone has said, is to communicate with your parishioners. Tell them what's going on. Let them know, not just the vestry be, but get it out there to everyone. This is what we're doing. Can you help me do this? Any chance you can help me do this? Can you volunteer a little bit? And I've found over the years, by communicating and showing people I want to help also, it's really come in handy. So thank you very much for letting me speak tonight. And yes, I am at my daughter's barn. It's a little warm, but I do have barn duty tonight, but I really wanted to be on this meeting so I could tell you that it was a great project, and I am so proud of being able to accomplish it. Thank you, Mother Megan.
Well, thank you, Jill. I really appreciate it because our two congregations do a lot of things together, and I was aware that you were putting on a new roof, and I was really curious about how you had achieved that over the summer. So thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
So
And
basically,
I was just going to say, call one thing
Yeah.
out, Mother Megan.
Yeah.
Jill, well, to both of you, really, there's a thank you in the chat. Thanks for the specific examples. I think they are very effective, and just how helpful it was to hear those stories that you told.
Good. Well, thank you. Now, at this point, in our previous presentations, we've had enough people to create breakout rooms, but I don't think we have such a large group tonight that we need to do that. So what I'd like to do is stop sharing the slides for the moment, and let's have conversation around this, and you can unmute yourselves. And I'd like to hear from you what your questions are, and perhaps examples of the sort of mini campaigns that your congregations have done.
I just want to say that somehow, watching all this, I see almost like regrets, like, oh, gee, we could have been more thankful. We could have whatever. But what you are triggering for me is, this doesn't seem like, the shiny kitchen, but we have had projects that have been sort of festering on the vestry list. You know how a to-do list, and then every month it's still there, and somebody did a little calling here and they found this information. Well, we just completed one of the things that was on our list was that we were having a real problem getting the church re-inspected, the fire alarm and things like that. So we've been down the path of, well, it's an old system, maybe we can buy parts. Certain people were looking on Amazon, but finally we got some bids that were less than what we thought by consulting other people, and it came from another church, actually, the company. So just got notice this week that, well, it had been completed, and the township just finally came and inspected and complimented on what a good job it was. So I'm just thinking that very quickly, I'll have to think what I can do this Sunday, but to comment, to make up some kind of thing about the success story, and how, I just think it's important to highlight that, because people don't know, and perhaps put in the specifics of what the bids we thought would be on replacing the whole system versus some of the bids on replacing parts. We actually replaced the whole system for about half of what everyone was speculating that it might cost, without really looking into it, because the cost itself from the speculation sounded unachievable. So you've triggered me a little here. I have to get.
Yeah.
Well, I hope in a good way, because I know that, for example, one of the first things that we actually raised money for when I came to St. Luke's was the rectory, which was in rather poor shape. And the exterior, the paint was flaking off, the windows were old, the roof needed replacing. And the vestry had trouble coming to terms with just doing it, because there was just a sense that, maybe we should sell it. No one's living there. These kinds of issues are difficult for vestries to come to grips with. And they all have lives of their own, and many are working, or they're, caring for families. And so it's not uppermost on their mind, how are we going to deal with church property? And so one of the first things that we did was think about being a good neighbor on our block in Ewing. In our block, what did the other homes look like? Did we want to have the home with the name of the church? It said Rectory, St. Luke's Rectory on it, with peeling paint and in poor condition? Did we want to look like that to our neighbors? What message did that communicate to people? And I think once we talked about it in that way, as opposed to, oh my gosh, this is such a nuisance, we've got to get to it, you know, should we, and then just what do we do with the rectory anyway, da 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 da. When we had a chance to come to terms with who we were within our community and think about our neighbors, we could think about dealing with buildings in a new way. And so we were able to take money out of savings, raise a small amount of money, and get a small loan from the diocese. And with those 3 sources of funds and some estimates, they got the job done. And the priest associate has been living there with her family now for many years. So sometimes it's just a matter of revisioning the issue. The issue was, who are we within our neighborhood? What do we look like in our neighborhood? Are we being good neighbors? I saw Christine clapping or raising your hand or something. What was so exciting?
It was exciting that she made her goal, that they raised the money. They kept pursuing it. It's so easy just to drop a campaign. Nobody's interested. Let's let it go for another year or so. And it's hard to get everybody on board sometimes.
I see Mother Mantell has raised her hand. Your voice is coming through in a very strange way. Could you check your audio?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So Mary Duke is on the call too, so she can add to it. But we did a capital campaign. I guess I'd been here about a year. We're in the 3rd year of it now, and we made a list of all the things that needed to be done in the parish. We needed new roofs. We needed an entire porch redone on our offices. We needed we did like a ton of stuff. So our goal originally was like $250,000, but we raised about $130,000. And with that $130,000, we were able to do everything we wanted to do. And we did pledges, and some people gave lump sums, and then some people pledged over 3 years, certain amounts over 3 years. And so we wanted to get everything done. So in order to get everything done, we borrowed, I believe it was like $42,000 from our investments so that we could finish everything, get everything done. And we ended up having to do things like we replaced the rectory windows. We just had to replace the rectory roof. That wasn't on our capital campaign budget, but we were able to do that with some of the funds we raised. And so it was a massive undertaking to do the capital campaign. And TENS helped us create our brochure. We created the brochure, but they guided us to help us about how to do this whole concept. Right, Mary? What else?
Yeah, that's good. We often talk about TENS and the annual campaign. Tell us about your experience with TENS and major gifts.
Well, TENS has great materials and resources that you can, modify specific to your parish, but at least it's a guideline. And I think through our capital campaign, I think people were more resourceful than we had anticipated, with being creative, ideas, contributing, and problem solving. And in the meantime, we had part of our air conditioning unit fail, and our huge industrial the stove, the big commercial range that went. So we had to replace that, and we did it. People came through and helped.
TENS helped us kind of write a script of what we said to, and we went out and in pairs and visited all of our members in our parish, every single member from the person who's been there forever to the new families. And we had great response. Not everybody gave. We didn't have a lot of people give massive gifts, but we had people who cared about the church contributed. And some people wanted to contribute to certain things. So like the only thing we have not done that we still have left to do is to replace our louvers on our bell tower. And one of our parishioners that's what in fact, he passed away. That's what he wanted to have done. So his wife, that money is set aside. So when we order them and get them, that money will help pay for them. So, but we did massive amount of stuff in the congregation that had been needing to be done for decades. And we were able to do it. And the capital campaign, we're in our third year. We continue to still send out updates. We continue to talk about it in our bulletin. We continue to invite people to contribute. If they haven't contributed yet, they're always welcome to contribute. There's always stuff that has to be done. So, and we also put a huge amount of our fundraising proceeds into the capital campaign. So it wasn't just people's money. We had fundraisers. We did different things that all went towards that. And now all those fundraisers, the money is going towards our food pantry. So we've shifted from capital campaign to we started a food pantry. So
yeah, that's great. I see that Deborah Prieto has her hand up. Deborah, if you're with us, unmute and tell us what's on your mind.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Let's see if I can get myself up on the screen.
There you
are. I can't see myself. I'm a little bit.
We can see you.
We can see you.
Okay, great. So actually, our senior warden, I'm at the Church of the Good Shepherd in Pittman. Our senior warden is also on this call. Her name is Diane Wall. And we are currently doing a very interesting campaign. We found ourselves in the situation of which many churches, I think, Diane's on now too, is that because of parishioners, we have a very vibrant church, but coming out of the pandemic, we're still rebuilding coming out of the pandemic. We do not have an endowment. Well, we have a baby endowment that we're not getting income. We're not getting, the right kind of income from, so we're not touching it now. So all of our budget is based on annual pledging. We don't have any other source of income. We don't have, AA meetings in our parish hall. We don't have a ton of weddings. We don't have a thrift shop. We don't have any other source except our parishioners giving each year. We have small fundraisers, but really we're primarily actively funded by our active congregation. We found ourselves in a position of having a budget gap. We're calling it a budget gap. It's basically a budget deficit. And the vestry and our new rector, Father Andrew Reinholtz, who's absolutely fabulous, we love him, came up with this idea of having a sort of a 3-year campaign to increase pledging. And we have a specific goal each year to increase pledging and grow the church to make up for the losses, because every year we have parishioners who move on they go home to God, or they move out of the state, or they become in a position where someone else is managing their finances, or who knows, the usual sort of attrition of regular givers. And so we recognize that we need to both grow the church. So we have a growth committee, and as chairman of the stewardship committee, a relatively newly appointed chairman of the stewardship committee, we have this unique campaign where over a period of 3 years, our goal is to increase our pledged giving to meet our expected expenses. In other words, to completely balance our budget. We have resources that we can dip into, like people love to give to the flower fund, and that's a separate, fund from our operating expenses. So you know, we have mechanisms to cover our costs, but our goal is to have our annual giving and our income each year match our expenses each year, right? That's what we all strive to do. So we have a 3-year campaign. Our goal is approximately $10,000 per year. We started this at the beginning of the year, January, February, with the stewardship committee that meets throughout the year. Our stewardship committee is transitioning from being just the leadership of the parish to being full of regular folks in the parish who aren't already the senior warden, like Diane, who's in the committee, and the rector and the junior warden and the treasurers, but rather, you know, other people. And I'm a really vociferous communicator, as those of you who have been on these workshops know. And I get up there and speak about what's going on. We communicate a lot. We developed a campaign called a Close the Gap campaign, and we made our own envelopes. They're handwritten by me because we didn't get around. We have a logo for our campaign that our rector came up with that we use in our parish emails and our trifold or in our bulletins each week. But, you know, in a pinch, I got these on Amazon and I just hand wrote Close the Gap, and underneath it, some of them say given by. I've changed it to given lovingly by. And on the back, I have a thank you so much. And I have, you know, the church's name. This one's kind of messy because I kind of messed it up, but it's the only one I have to show you. And at 6 months into this year, we have we're on track to exceed our goal for this year. Now we're running into the annual stewardship campaign coming up in the fall, so I'm not sure how we're going to, you know, overlap with that. It's kind of a work in progress. We'll figure that out. We'll figure that out, but and I can update you next year and the year after to see where we are.
Love to hear it.
Diane. So that's the story. Sorry it was so long, but I just
No,
wanted to share.
that's good. It's good because, you know, there's no one size fits all for this. Congregations have their own personalities. I mean, you know, as a priest who now does supply around the diocese, I've seen all kinds of congregations, and each one has its own unique character, and each one has its own unique needs and its own unique capacity. And there's a lot of good stuff that's going on in our congregations. Is there anyone else who would like to jump in? We have a few more minutes.
I was just going to add something to what Deborah said. I think you're probably not unique in that a number of parishes would find there is that gap, that, you know, that $10,000 gap. If it's 2,500, you're not too much worried about it. But when it gets to be a $10,000 gap, you know, and how do you handle that? And you gave a wonderful example of how you're doing it. And I suspect other, you know, other congregations may have a different way of approaching that. Perhaps it's because annually in the spring you have, as I say, a mini campaign, perhaps around the theme of whatever, the landscaping, the music, the flowers, something that helps fill that in. So that's kind of a bridging category.
Yeah. I see that Mary Elise has raised her hand.
Yeah, so I have a question, more than a good experience to share. But when you're doing these special campaigns, what's kind of your recommendation so that you keep your pledging, you know, where it is, rather than diffuse, you know, from your pledge?
Yeah, this is everybody's worry. And it's something that people in the field of fundraising also have to address, because very often the people who are your consistent givers also are your special gift donors. They are people who are generous. They give in many directions, and, you know, either your treasurer or somebody knows who these people are, because somebody and in fact, very often the rector knows as well, who are the consistent pledgers who are able to be very generous. And as far as I've ever heard, and this includes from people in large educational institutions, all kinds of nonprofits in the area, capital campaigns or mini campaigns do not really interfere with annual giving. People who give annually are usually and are consistent year after year are most likely to be the people willing to make a special gift for a particular purpose. So I wouldn't be afraid of that.
And I think the other thing, and we touched on this just a bit, is that the specialness of the special campaign. So that it's not something that people think, oh, well, there's the annual campaign and now, oh, every year they're coming, they're coming back with this project and then that, that project. So that it truly is something special. And I think that adds to just what Mother Megan was saying, is that people who give. The people who are giving are the best prospects for giving to the campaign, to the capital campaign, or the kind of mini capital campaign.
And one of the reasons why we believe you should take a very formal and structured approach to these even mini campaigns is so that people don't feel like they're being hit up year after year, being nickeled and dimed every time, like, the boiler needs fixing, or we want to replace the lights with LED or whatever, so that there's a plan, an overarching plan. So if it's a building renovation, you've got a budget, you've got a timeline, you've got estimates, and then you ask the people for money, as opposed to everything being kind of like an emergency. People get exhausted if they feel like they're being asked every time some small thing goes wrong, that they've got now to make a special contribution. That's why a mini campaign is really supposed to be a campaign with a start and an end and a process in between. Are there any other questions out there? Well, this has been great. We're almost at the hour, and I would like to close this out in prayer. I would also like to make a pitch for people to join Project Resource. We are always looking for new members, people who are interested in the work of supporting our congregations for the mission and ministry that we're all called to be a part of, something that's really beyond just fundraising. And I've had a couple of responses from people who have been on these calls in the last few weeks. I hope some more of you will let us know if you're interested, and you can get in touch with Project Resource through Project Resource at dioceseofnj.org. So we're available, and some of you know us anyway. And oh, good. Little comment there in the chat. So that's how you can reach us if you'd like to be more engaged with Project Resource. And finally, the last slide in all of our presentations includes resources that you can access for examples, for ideas, for just, browsing to be inspired. But in any event, I thank you again. Let us pray. Loving and generous God, we give you thanks, knowing that all that we are and all that we have comes from you. Give us the courage to share generously from what we have received, our time, our talent, and our possessions, in the certain knowledge that you will transform us and our gifts into more than we can ever imagine. Amen.
Amen.
Well, thank you, everybody. Take care.
Everyone.
Good night, everyone.